realm of criminal defense, the tactics employed by defense attorneys can sometimes involve challenging the credibility and actions of key figures in the judicial process, specifically judges and police officers. This approach, often seen as controversial, aims to introduce reasonable doubt about the prosecution's case and advocate for the rights of the accused. By attacking the credibility of these authorities, defense attorneys strive to ensure a fair trial for their clients. Christopher Thiel. 24-year-old Christopher Thiel moved from Texas to Seattle in 2016. He was experiencing homelessness at that time in Texas. On May 14, 2018, in Seattle, Thiel followed a 40-year-old woman to a ladies' restroom at Carter's Motors. Thiel locked the entrance of the restroom, went towards the woman, grabbed her neck, and threw her on the ground. The woman's screams were heard by the cab driver she had booked for herself. Thiel tried to run away from the scene, but was immediately caught by the employees of the showroom. The investigating officer reported that Thiel was having a psychotic break the day he assaulted the woman because during the investigation, whatever Thiel said did not make sense. Christopher Thiel was brought to court. He was facing 2 charges: first-degree sexual assault and unlawful imprisonment. Thiel in court first raised his arm toward his own attorney, Berlin, which was immediately stopped by the police officer behind him. While the court was announcing Thiel's case, he surprisingly punched his own attorney. Luckily, the police controlled him, and he was taken out of the court immediately with his face covered with a blindfold hood. Video start at 15:15 and ends at 15:49. Fortunately, Berland was safe and didn't have any injury, and he recused himself from Thiel's case. The next time Thiel appeared in court, the police officials ensured that he couldn't hit anyone. Thiel was tied around the chair he was sitting on. However, Thiel still had a question about where they got his short hair photo. The state and defense jointly recommended Thiel be sentenced to a minimum of 8.5 years in prison. Lastly, Thiel was sentenced to 8.5 years in prison by the court. Christopher Thiel, who has been diagnosed with an unspecified schizophrenic spectrum disorder or some other psychotic disorder, did not receive any other sentence for his actions in court because of this diagnosis, and who raped woman in restroom of Ballard car dealership, sentenced to a minimum of 8.5 years in prison. Vertical bar, the Seattle Times. The next case is more gruesome than this one. The defendant, Sidney Newsome, wanted a proper fight with the judge. Sidney Newsome. On January 7th, 2021, 27-year-old Sidney Newsome, who was charged in a domestic violence case, was brought before Judge Aubrey Rimes in the Pike County Justice Court. When Newsome appeared before the judge, he started evaluating the paperwork. After finishing the review, he began to dance in front of the judge. The transport officer then tapped on the table to stop Newsome from dancing, which caused Newsome to become flustered. He then got in line when his brother and mother entered the courtroom. Newsome wanted to go to them, but was stopped by the transport officer. The officer then asked Newsome to sign some papers. After signing the papers, he started arguing with the judge. The judge then ordered the officer to take him out of the court. As Newsome was being taken out of the court, he tried to break free from the officer, during which he threw a stack of papers towards the judge. The 2 clerks, seeing this, rushed away from the court. Newsome's mother started reacting, but his brother controlled her. Newsome then overpowered the transport officer and threw a telephone towards Judge Rimes. The telephone fortunately hit the computer monitor. Judge Rimes, seeing the situation, decided to take a stand and single-handedly put Newsome down on the table. The defendant's brother also helped the judge control the prisoner. Finally, more transport officers arrived to control the situation, and Newsome was taken out of the court. The judge eventually returned to his seat. Sidney was additionally charged with contempt of court and had to serve 2 days in jail. The next case is completely different from this one. 21-year-old Daniel Berry assaulted not 1 but 2 jail employees. Daniel Stewart Berry, an Ole Miss student majoring in business from Brandon. Daniel Stewart Berry, aged 21 years, was arrested as he was accused of robbing a North Mississippi store and assaulting 2 officers while being in jail. Daniel Stewart Berry, on a Tuesday in early February 2017, entered a local Western Union quick stop on the highway and robbed the clerk. However, a customer in the store managed to detain Berry until the officers arrived. He was accused of robbing around $20 from the clerk. On the Thursday of the same week, when Daniel was being taken to court, he started cursing and headbutted a deputy. It was later revealed that Daniel had also assaulted a female jailer the night before when she tried to give him his meal. The police officials stated that they thought Barry was under the influence of drugs and would need to get him evaluated by a doctor in a manner that would be safe for both parties. Despite this, the judge appointed an attorney, and Daniel was then held on a $200,000 bond. Later on, investigators believed that Daniel was on a synthetic drug, which had various names. On to the next case, which is about Bass Webb, who has murdered not one, not two, but 3 people, including his 2 ex-girlfriends. Bass Webb.
He's already been convicted of killing 1 former girlfriend, and next month, Bass Webb is scheduled to stand trial for the murder of a 2nd former girlfriend.
We are in court in Paris, Kentucky, where 30-year-old Bass Webb is presented in front of Judge Vanessa Dixon on charges of 2 counts of murder. Bass Webb had just been released after serving 3 months in jail on assault charges. The CCTV footage captured a week ago outside a jail in Kentucky shows Webb accelerating his car and trying to murder 2 jail employees. Fortunately, one of the jail employees survived, but the other couldn't. Webb is now presented in front of Judge Vanessa Dixon. The judge informs the defender that she wouldn't be taking up this case as she knew both jail employees. Webb, after listening to this, did something that shocked everyone in the court. He literally spit on the face of the judge. The judge immediately ordered charges against Webb. While this was not the last time Bass Webb broke the law. 5 inmates, including Webb, were involved in a riot inside the detention center. The police shot beanbag bullets to restrict them. At this moment, a pepperball bullet hit Webb on the neck, due to which he whipped a metal telephone box at the officer. This action was also considered a charge of 3rd-degree assault, because throwing away a metallic phone can cause death or serious physical injury. Webb was found guilty of 3rd-degree assault and was given 15 years in prison, while he was given 37 years in prison for his action of running a car over 2 jail employees. Hence, Webb was sentenced to a total of 52 years in prison. Webb was in prison when more disturbing accusations were made against him. He was charged with the murder of his ex-girlfriend, Brya Runowitz, which had been unsolved until then. Later on, Webb pleaded guilty to the murder and was given an additional 50 years in prison. Well, it didn't stop there. 5 years later, Webb was again back in court, this time in another case of the murder of his other girlfriend, Sabrina Vaughn. When Webb appeared in court during Sabrina's case, his head was shaved, and he had a tattoo showing the people he wanted to kill. Webb was sentenced to life in prison with a possibility of parole only after 25 years.